Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. This is the long-awaited, much talked about video that I teased before, the 980 Ti versus the GTX 1070 video. In this video today, it's going to be kind of short, sweet, to the point, but basically we would run some benchmarks to see which of these cards might be the better value for you. You can go and buy a new 1070, or maybe it's a better deal to buy a used 980 Ti. Prices vary in your region, so you have to check the prices, but at least we will have some benchmarks for you so you can kind of see where they kind of stand against each other and see which one might be right for yourself. So, in the 1070 corner, not pictured here because I don't have it, shout out to Josh for letting me borrow it though, we have the EVGA GTX 1070 ACX 2.0, the super clocked card. The box for it is hanging out right back there. And in the GTX 980 Ti corner, we have the Asus GTX 980 Ti Strix Edition. Very beautiful, big card. But we overclocked both these cards as far as we possibly could for the sake of this review while still being stable. So the 980 Ti was running at a rock solid 1440 megahertz. And the 1070 was a little bit different because of the way GPU Boost 3.0 works, but it fluctuates a little bit more, but it was running at roughly 1950 megahertz, just shy of the 2000 megahertz mark. So it had a good 500 megahertz, overclock, or higher clock rather than this guy here. But of course, if you know the specs of these cards, this card has a lot more stream processors, or I should say CUDA cores, than the 1070. So will the higher clock speed win out, or will more cores win out? We'll have to find out. All of the tests that I'm going to talk about today were conducted on my computer, which is a Intel Core i7-5820K. I've overclocked it to 4 gigahertz for the sake of these tests. And of course it has 16 gigs of RAM as well, because we don't want to run out of RAM when we're running any sort of test. All the tests were run off an SSD. Not that it really affects the actual scores or FPS or anything like that, but certainly makes it less painful while I'm waiting for load times. So that's about that. I think we can just about get into the benchmarks. And after the benchmarks, I'll talk about a couple of other really quick reasons why one card might be preferable over the other. But of course, some of these things are going to be preference, but we'll talk about that at the end. So, first benchmark we ran was 3D Mark Firestrike. Not Extreme or Ultra, this was just regular Firestrike. That way, you know, I figured if you're upgrading to a 1070 or 980 Ti, you have obviously something lower end or something maybe older, so you're probably going to be running Firestrike yourself to compare, so hopefully these scores will be more representative of what you're going to use to compare against these cards. So, 980 Ti, GPU score, graphics score, got 20,178. And the GTX 1070 got 19,375. So very, very close scores there. 980 Ti wins by a very narrow margin. The overall scores, the 980 Ti got 17,018 points. And the GTX 1070 got 16,429 points. So again, 980 Ti wins, but very, very barely, you know, very, very barely. Very slim margin there, you know. 980 Ti is just barely edging that out. Next benchmark we have up here is the TimeSpy benchmark, because it's very new. It's DirectX 12 based. A lot of stuff going on in there, and it's kind of like the hot new thing to test. So we figured we'd run it. So TimeSpy, GTX 980 Ti got 6,241 points, and the GTX 1070 got 6,396. Just barely edging out the 980 Ti, but it is a clear win. Also, TimeSpy overall scores. What do we got here? We got GTX 980 Ti getting 6,266 points, and GTX 1070 getting 6,402. So again, GTX 1070 just edging out this guy just by a little bit. Can I say, victory's a victory. So that was interesting. The last synthetic benchmark that we did was the new superposition benchmark from Unigen. If you don't know Unigen, they did like Heaven and Valley benchmarks, which are still great to use, but they're getting a little long in the tooth, so we figured we'd go with the latest and greatest. So in superposition, GTX 980 Ti, 4,032 points at the 1080p Extreme preset, might I add. That's what we tested at. So 4,032 points for the GTX 980 Ti. And the GTX 1070 got 3,699. So definitely kind of an edge going there for the 980 Ti, for sure. Our last benchmark, which admittedly is still somewhat synthetic because it's a canned benchmark from a game. It's the Metro Last Light Redux benchmark. Reason this one was picked was because the game has been out for some time. There's probably not going to be any really more driver optimizations for it. This is as good as it's going to get. If we picked a game that was brand new, Yeah, it might be a little bit more exciting to see, but you never know. In 6 months, this might change, especially for the 1070. If some new drivers come out for it, its performance can improve, which is great, but it's not really a representative fair comparison against the 980 Ti, in my opinion, because the 980 Ti might not get quite as many driver updates. So something with a game that's a couple years old, this is a very fair fight. It's still a demanding game, but it's been as optimized as good as it's going to get, and it is an NVIDIA title. So anyway, Metro Last Light Redux benchmark running at 1080p, everything maxed out. GTX 980 Ti gets 82 FPS average, and the GTX 1070 got 78 FPS average. So again, very, very close, but 980 Ti still kind of comes out on top. All of these benchmarks, just so you know, Firestrike, Time Spy, Superposition, and Metro, these were all run 3 times and then averaged out, so it's not just a single run, so we did kind of account for any variance there a little bit. So what can we make of this? Well, first of all, we can make out the cards are very, very close. Performance is like neck and neck almost, and I mean, both of these cards were overclocked heavily. If I had a 980 Ti that overclocked lesser, then the 1070 would have won in some of these tests more. If the 1070 overclocked better, then it could have also won in the tests more. So you're going to have to kind of play the silicon lottery, of course, just like always. But the cards are very, very close. A couple of things to keep in mind. Obviously, 980 Ti is a couple years old, and a lot of people have upgraded from them, so they might be a lot cheaper than 1070s. But there's other reasons that you might want a 1070 other than just that this one is cheaper. The 1070 also has more memory, so you've got 8 gigs of VRAM instead of 6. And it also consumes quite a bit less power. I don't know, I guess you guys probably wouldn't have seen this, but this guy in particular has 2 8-pin power connectors. It's probably hard to see, but, it's a fast card, to be sure. But it also takes a lot of power. 1070s, some of them even have just single power connectors, single 6-pin or single 8-pin. So they're a lot easier on your power supply, and they put out less heat and potentially less noise as well because they put out less heat. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Pricing is going to depend on your area, so definitely look up prices for each of these cards before you consider buying one. If this guy is cheap enough, I say personally to hell with everything. It's still really, really fast. I play games at 1440p with it right now, and off the top of my head, I haven't gotten any huge new titles this year, but I can pretty much max everything aside from like anti-aliasing and stuff, and I'm getting close to, if not 60 FPS, if not over. Like Doom is a game where, for example, I can max everything, even anti-aliasing all the way to the max, and I just VSync it at 60 and it's fine. So I mean, this guy is still an absolute champ and a beast. Even if it's not necessarily the Strix version that you're looking at. I personally tend to stay away from blower style cards, but I mean, again, if you don't care about a little bit of extra heat and potentially a little bit of extra noise, or if it's cheap enough, by all means, go for it. Both of these cards are fantastic. They're both going to get the job done, but at least now there's a little bit of data for you to look at to kind of know where they stack up against each other, which is like pretty much they trade blows, depending on what what game you're playing or what benchmark you're running. It's pretty hard to go wrong with either of them. So look at pricing in your area for each card. That'll help you make your decision. At least you have a bit of data now. I think that's about all. Thanks very much for watching, everybody, and I will see you in the next video.